Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here, and today I'm going to be doing a video a little bit different than one I would normally do. Today I'm going to be talking about baseball instead of my typical topic of basketball. As you may or may not know, I am also greatly interested in baseball and football along with basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport, but I do have a lot of interest in those other two. And so today I'm going to be talking about baseball and specifically Barry Bonds, and I'm going to be tackling the issue of the bad rap he gets. I think that the media and the baseball community in general really think poorly of Barry Bonds, and I think it's just really unfair. I think that, I don't think, he is one of the greatest statistical baseball players of all time, if not the greatest baseball player of all time, statistically speaking. And I think it's very unfair that he is not in the Hall of Fame yet. He has about 3 years of eligibility left to get in the Hall of Fame. If you don't know how that works, baseball players have 10 years of eligibility to get voted into the Hall of Fame, and he only has a few left because people have been holding grudges against him because of his suspected relationship with steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. Which, just as a little bit of background, he never was suspended for performance-enhancing drugs or anything like that. It was just suspected that he used them. He did testify in a trial in 2003 as a witness regarding a company based in San Francisco that was supposed to be part of the big steroid use in the MLB. They were suspected of distributing them to MLB players. He was a witness in that case and lied, and that is the biggest piece of evidence that people bring up when suspecting him of using drugs, is that he was accused of perjury because he lied in that case. Now, Barry Bonds may well have used steroids, and, odds are that he probably did. Honestly, I'm going to tell the truth. He probably did use steroids. That's my opinion. I think that's most people's opinion. But I don't think that he should necessarily be condemned for that. I think that, if the MLB really didn't want him doing that, they should have put in way stricter policies than they had. No one was complaining when Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire were having one of the most epic home run races in the history of baseball, probably the most epic home run race to get the record for home runs in a single season. And no one was complaining when Alex Rodriguez was bombing 50 home runs a year and hitting 320, and everyone loved it and everyone bought his jerseys. And then he went to New York and he was just big time. And no one hated it when Barry Bonds was smashing 50 home runs a year and batting 320. Honestly, I think there's this old school and this new school when it comes to baseball. There are these guys about 60 years old and older who think baseball is a pure game, nothing should tarnish it, whereas it's the game where you probably see the most players cheating because of the widespread use of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs in the game. Lots of guys do it, lots of guys get caught for it, a lot more guys don't get caught for it. Barry Bonds never was on the record getting caught for using these steroids. And maybe, it's me turning a blind eye, but I'm sort of an innocent until proven guilty kind of guy. I don't think that he should be condemned for something that was never even proven. And on the other hand, I think it's bad of the MLB to have totally pushed Barry Bonds on us in the early 2000s and late 90s as the face of baseball, when now around 15, 20 years later, they completely condemn him for what he did. Like that. Major League Baseball can't have their cake and eat it too. I think it's unfair of them that on one hand, when he was playing, they're pushing him as the face of the MLB and they're applauding everything he did and they're all about him. And now that he's retired, they're shunning him and acting like he was the devil when he played and that he is not to be part of the MLB whatsoever, when he was their meal ticket early on in the 2000s when he was the face of baseball. So I think that's a really, I don't want to say two-faced thing of them to do, but it's really unfair, and I think that he deserves a lot more recognition than he gets. And basically today I'm going to talk a little bit about statistics and tell you a little bit about him in case you didn't know much. So I'm just going to read off some of his career stats here and tell you a little bit about him. So for his career, Barry Bonds had a batting average of 298, just a shade under 300. His most notorious statistic is probably his career home runs, which is 762, which is the all-time record. He has hit more home runs than any other baseball player ever. In 2001, he set the MLB record for home runs in a single season at 73, breaking Hank Aaron's record. In the same season, he also hit 328 and had 177 runs batted in, or no, 137 runs batted in, which is highly impressive. I think that a lot of people forget too, this is not in the 2001 season, but just overall, is that Barry Bonds, in the first half of his career, I'd say, up until around the year 2000, was a speed threat as well as a batting threat. He had lots of seasons where he hit lots of home runs, but also stole a lot of bases. For example, in 1996, he hit 308, but then he hit 42 home runs and stole 40 bases. Earlier on in his career, in 1990, when he won his first MVP, he hit 301. He had 33 home runs, but then he had 52 stolen bases. So, like, if you needed a history lesson, Barry Bonds was essentially Mike Trout up until around 99 to 2000, in which he just focused a lot more on like home runs, and then he became more of like let's say a more athletic version of David Ortiz, if that's a comparison I can make. He still played the outfield, he still played in the NL, so he was never a DH, but he just didn't hit, or he just didn't steal many bases after that. He got a lot more chunky. By the time he was like in 1990, he was young and in the prime of his career, and he weighed about 185, and then by 2001, 2002, he was weighing more like 225, so he had gained about 40 pounds. So he lost a lot of his speed and focused a lot more on just his power and his average, and not so much on stealing bases. But here are just some. So he played from 86 until 2007, 22 seasons. But really, I'm not going to count 86 because he didn't play the full season then, and then he didn't really play the full season 2005, 6, or 7. 2005 he missed almost the entire year, and then 2006 and 7 he played about 3/4 of the year, but not the whole season, and was sort of a shell of himself by that point. But let's say between his prime of I'm going to say the prime of his career was 1990 to 2004, which is 15 years. On average, every season, he hit 41 home runs. Like, if you add up his home run totals during those 15 years and divide them by 15, it comes out to 41 home runs per season, which I think is highly impressive. I'm just going to now read off a few of his individual seasons, and some that I find highly impressive. I've already done that with a few years, but I'm just going to continue doing it. I think some would argue one of his best years was obviously 2001, in which he hit 328 with a 73 and 137 for RBI. But I think an underrated year as well is the year after that, 2002. It's his best year as far as average. He hit 370, led the MLB with that average, and he had 46 home runs, 110 RBI, and he had an on-base percentage of .582, which means he got on base in 58% of his at-bats. Very impressive. Very rare in MLB history that a guy has an on-base percentage above 50. But he did in this season, and that's not the only year that he did that. He also did it in 3 other years, so 4 years total that he had an on-base percentage above 50. Let's see here. In 2004, he had one of the highest, I think the highest actually, on-base percentages of all time, .609, which is basically he got on base 61% of the times that he came up to bat, which is insane that he got on base like 3 out of every 5 times he was at the plate. In this season, he also hit 362, which is his second highest career average in a season. He had 45 home runs and 101 RBI. He had 232 walks, which is a record for a season. Very impressive. He was getting walked all the time in his career. In 1998, He was one of the few guys, I think one of 6 guys ever to get walked with the bases loaded. It's since happened to a few more guys, but at the time it was a really rare occasion. So for his career, he's first in home runs. He's 6th in RBI. He's 6th in walks in a game. I think he's he's 6th in on-base percentage. His career on-base percentage is .444. So for his career, he got on base 44% of his at-bats, which is extremely impressive. And now I guess I just want to address a big thing that people bring up, which is, well, he's only great because he used steroids. So now it's widely considered that Barry Bonds started using steroids after 1998. So in 1999 was suspected to be the first year that he used steroids. And now I would like to make a point about this. You can take it whatever way you like. Honestly, steroids don't do as much for you in baseball as people want to believe. Steroids do make you stronger, yes. And, so that potentially if you hit the ball right, it would go farther. It's estimated that with steroids that probably adds about 20 to 25 feet on your fly ball, which is helpful when you're a home run hitter, obviously. So yes, Barry Bonds did benefit from steroids, and he did likely get more home runs from steroids. But now I'd like to bring this up. Steroids in no way improve your skill level whatsoever. They just make you physically stronger. They have no bearing on your talent at all. So I think people are mixed up in thinking like that Barry Bonds without steroids would have, for his career, hit 240 and only had 100 career home runs. That's entirely false, and something to prove it would be right here. Let's take his career 86 to 98, the 13 seasons that he played in that he was basically confirmed not using steroids. In those 13 years, he had an average of 290 with 411 home runs, nearly 2,000 hits, 1,200 RBI, about 1,300 walks, and an on-base OPS, which is on-base plus slugging percentage, of .966, which is highly impressive. So you're telling me that a guy who has a 290 average with 411 career home runs wouldn't get into the Hall of Fame? If you're saying that, with confirmed no steroids, Barry Bonds hitting that average and having those many home runs, I think that you're just lying, because a guy like Chipper Jones, who is first ballot Hall of Fame this year, has less career home runs than him. He only has about, I think, 403, and he has around a similar career average in the 290s. So if you're telling me that that qualifies you as first ballot, that means that Barry Bonds' first half of his career, or first 13 seasons of his career, before he used any steroids, he would have still been a first ballot Hall of Famer. So now I think when you consider that you look at the other half of his career in which he won 4 MVP awards, I don't think you can really deny that when you add that in, he's a statistical juggernaut and possibly the greatest player of all time. I would say he's the greatest player of all time just because of his sheer statistical prowess. A guy like Barry Bonds is often considered to be the main rival. The main rival of Barry Bonds is in the 90s is considered to be Ken Griffey Jr. And I'm just quickly going to look up Ken Griffey Jr.'s career stats here for us to do a comparison. Just because I feel like it'd be notable and a good talking point for us just to highlight the difference between them. So Ken Griffey Jr. for his career has 132 less home runs at 630. His career average is only 284 instead of 298. And I think you'd say that about his best year, he had a year in which he had an average of 304, 56 homers, and 147 RBI. So yes, that is a very good season. He never came close to sniffing the 370 average that Barry pulled off in a season, and he didn't come close to his record of 73 home runs. He did best him in RBI, but like Barry Bonds had about like 8 years in which he had 45 home runs and a 310 average, whereas Ken Griffey Jr. had more like 5 of those, or let's see here. Ken Griffey had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in which he had 40 plus home runs, whereas Barry Bonds had, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, so he had 1 more. But then when you look at Ken Griffey's 30 plus home run seasons, Ken Griffey only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if you look at Barry Bonds' 30 plus home run seasons, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14, let's see. Or maybe I miscounted. Nope, it's 14. So 14 in comparison to 9, I think that you can see that like Ken Griffey, who got a lot more of the attention in the 90s, was actually the worst statistical player. So I guess the point of this video that I'm trying to make is that like you can say that Barry Bonds cheated, which he was never caught for, I might admit, and that he's a dirty guy and he defamed the game and doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and he takes away the credibility of baseball. But I think it's the whole issue being discussed is bigger than Barry Bonds. I think that he is a symptom of the era he played in. I don't think that he would have done steroids if he was born 20 years earlier. I think that when the major guys in the game were Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, who were guys that were known to juice, it's not surprising that Barry Bonds followed the trend and wanted to hop on the train. I do want to harken back to the point that just because he used steroids doesn't make him more talented or more skilled. It just gives you more strength. Even if Barry Bonds didn't use steroids, he could have just focused on his average and hit 340 every year and given up the power. The impressive thing about Barry Bonds was that he had the average and the power. He didn't just have one or the other. Like a lot of guys you'll see hit 220 and then have 50 home runs. But Barry Bonds was a guy that could repeatedly hit 45 home runs and then bat 320. And that's the rare thing about him that I think we should applaud. Yes, he could have given up his power for average, as we all know. It's usually a one or the other thing. You either hit for average or power. But Barry Bonds never had to make that sacrifice. He could have hit 350 every year and only hit 20 home runs, but instead he hit 320 and hit 45 home runs every year. So I think we should not condemn him for the era he was born into, but applaud him for what he did do for baseball as a whole, what he achieved individually, and applaud all the records he has. 7 MVPs, more than any other player ever. Home run record. He's a single season home run record. These are impressive things, and I don't think it's fair of us to shun him from the Hall of Fame when, honestly, he's the best statistical player in MLB history. I think it's a shame. And the MLB should be ashamed of themselves. Because really, if they don't want him in the Hall of Fame, it's their own fault, because he never, ever was caught on PEDs. In all the testing that the MLB does, he was never caught. They could never even prove that he did it. And my next point after that is that the MLB applauded him for being a great hitter. And they sold his jerseys. They promoted him big time. He was the face of baseball for about 10 years there. And I think that that's really unfair that they pushed him so hard and then shunned him afterwards. It's like, pick your stance. Are you pro-steroid use or anti-steroid use? Because you can't have both. You can't applaud a player and then shun them once they're out of the baseball. So ultimately, is it Barry Bonds' fault and should he be punished? No. Baseball should get a more clear stance on how they feel about PEDs, and they're trying to do that now, I think, which is good. But it's at the cost of a player like Barry Bonds being raked over the coals when he doesn't deserve it. So if you take anything from this video, take this. Barry Bonds is a tremendous statistical player worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, and his lack of Hall of Fame enshrinement may be more of a result of the MLB sending mixed messages about how it feels about PEDs rather than the things that he has done individually. I hope you learned something in this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you maybe got your stance changed a little bit if you've been resistant to being pro Barry Bonds in the past. And I guess maybe just hopefully in the future with other players you could learn to have an open mind if you have had a closed mind about them in the past. Leave your comments below if you disagree with me or agree with me. I'd be happy to talk to you guys about it. I love a good conversation. This is always my first conversation I bring up with my friends who are big fans of baseball because I just think it's one of the most interesting of all time. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.